Here's how to build a VS Code extension that allows GPT-3 to review your code directly from the editor. To set it up, there are 3 things you have to have installed: Node.js, Yeoman, and VS Code extension generator. When everything's installed, open up your terminal, run yo code, and go through the setup to have your extension scaffolded. To make sure everything worked, inside VS Code you can press F5 to run the extension. In the new window that opens, open up the command palette and run hello world. If the information message pops up, you're all good. Now let's make it do something useful. To build it, your logic will be in extension.ts and your configuration will be in package.json. Let's start with the configuration. The commands node assigns a title and other UI elements to a command. For example, the title is used in the command palette. When the command is invoked, VS Code will emit an activation event, and this activates your extension. The onCommand event is needed for each command, and there are other event types as well. Now that the extension can be activated and the command can be triggered, it's time to code the logic. Switch over to extension.ts. Inside the activate function, you will register the commands that you defined in package.json. The default command is very basic. As you saw, it just displays a hard-coded information message. Since VS Code is already imported, you can take advantage of the API's functionality and make the command more powerful. Very straightforward to have your command capture the code the user highlights. First, you grab the editor with VS Code.window.active text editor. Then you get the selected text with editor.document.getText, and then you pass in editor.selection. It just took those 2 lines for us to be able to capture text from the user and store it in a variable for our extension to use later. And here's how you integrate the extension with OpenAI. First, you run npm install OpenAI. Then there are 2 things we need to import into our extension from OpenAI. We import configuration and OpenAI API. Then you build your configuration object. This is where you add your API key. Big important security note. I have seen so many extensions that store API keys in their settings files. This is completely insecure. All extensions have access to all settings, which is stored in plain text. So if you put your API key there, any malicious extension can grab it easily. What you need to do is store it in secret storage, which is scoped to each individual extension. Now you pass the configuration object into a new instance of OpenAI API. We will need to send a prompt to GPT-3, so let's make a very basic one using the selected text we captured earlier. Then you create a completion object, which is the request sent to OpenAI. This is where you define the model you want to use, the prompt you include, and other variables such as max tokens and temperature. When you get your response, you can store the output with response.data, the first element in the choices array.text. Choices is an array because you can set the end variable to return more completions for a given prompt, but the default end value is 1. And then you can display the response to the user with vscode.window.showInformation message and pass in the output. And that's it. It's really that easy. You have empowered users to have their code reviewed by GPT-3 in just a handful of lines of code in just a few minutes. Think about the potential impact of tens of millions of developers using your extension to become more efficient programmers. GitHub repo is linked in the description. I have code snippets there as well as all the commands you'll need to get up and running. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Happy building.